So the new Disney managed to take the classic Snow White, which actually put Walt Disney on the map, the first fully animated feature ever in film history. They managed to take that iconic cinematic achievement and in their update took her from Snow White to Snow Woke to now Snow Canceled. Thank you, South Park.
Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth.
Hi, I'm Pastor Marty. This is the Afternoon Drive. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you have subscribed to the channel. Once you have, smack the bell, click the word all to get notification of my rants, my ravings, and yes, my undeniably flawless reasonings. Thank you so much for watching the Afternoon Drive. Please like and share this video so that we can get the word out that we're here. That old adage continues to ring true. Go woke, go broke. Just ask Gillette when they decided to declare war on their customer base, i.e. men, when they started doing TV commercials about toxic masculinity or trans men learning how to shave for the first time. And all of a sudden, men stopped buying their product. Ask Bud Light how it worked out putting Dylan Mulvaney on a can and letting him be the spokesperson and having a vice president on a interview say, we've got to take Bud Light from its frat boy image and we've got to refine it. And, in other words, we're going after sophisticated young people so we can turn them into alcoholics. And we don't want the people that actually buy the product to be representative of who we are anymore. That worked out so well for Bud Light. They went from number 1 to, I think they've fallen to now number like 14, I think is what I read somewhere recently. So, we went through a couple of years ago in the height of all the insanity that was the Rovid pandemic, and the cancel culture went into a fevered pitch, and we now have world peace because we got rid of a pancake syrup, took a black guy off of a rice box, and we abandoned the Indian girl on the butter box. And because we did all that, everything is just wonderful. Unicorns fly, and everything is just the utopia that libloons always imagined life could be. No. And Walt Disney apparently hasn't killed and destroyed enough great, shall we say, movie series. They killed Star Wars. They've killed Indiana Jones. They took over the Marvel Universe and gave us the multiverse, and now everybody hates superhero movies like that now because it's just so much overkill. And then they decided, they're going to just reimagine everything. And we had to get a new live action version of The Little Mermaid. And again, there was a lot of backlash over the fact that Ariel in the cartoon version, of course, is a white mermaid with red hair. And in the new version, of course, she's of African American. And now we're going to get the new woke Snow White. Now, on one hand, some of this, changing Ariel, who is a fictional character, that didn't bother me so much, but I was wondering how people would react if we, in the next version of, say, the Black Panther, we cast a white guy or an Asian American. Yeah, that wouldn't fly, and you would start hearing all of this about cultural appropriation. But apparently it's okay to do cultural appropriation in reverse. And again, Rachel Zegler being chosen to play Snow White is not, when we point out that there's a problem there, it's not an attack on her ethnicity. It's just simply pointing out the obvious that the original Snow White, the story, the character got her name because she was as white as the snow. This is a story written in Nordic tradition, and the last time I checked, they were not known for being people of color. I'm just stating an obvious fact. But I will say this, that Rachel Zegler, when, she's in the full costume, there is a striking resemblance to the drawn caricature of Snow White and the iconic princess, which, by the way, Walt Disney, not only was it the launch of them with the animated movies, but Snow White and Cinderella's castle and the whole concept of the princess is the Walt Disney brand. And for some of us who lived in Central Florida, we'd make our annual or multiple trips in the course of a year to Disney World. And I am telling you that for children, in particular little girls, it was the fairy princess thing that they find the magical kingdom so magical. And so they basically trashed that and destroyed that with Rachel Zegler. All it took was her giving some interviews where she basically said that Prince Charming was a stalker, and they're not interested in love in this story, but rather Snow White becoming the leader that she was always meant to be. Again, it is a total deviation from the original storyline, and people had a backlash against that. First of all, the bad guy in the movie, and that's the way Rachel Zegler, and she talked about with almost disdain, that 1937 movie, which is so outdated, what you're trashing your own brand. You're basically saying that there was something wrong with the movie we made in 1937. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. If we don't stop judging things based on today's culture. And a lot of the stuff I've not watched. I'm not necessarily a big fan of all of this stuff, but when I watch certain things just constantly being trashed. I read an article the other day because the new Frasier series is out. And so they were talking about the original Frasier series when he had his brother Niles and he was the psychiatrist talk show host in Seattle. And how that show, despite the fact it got more Emmy nominations than any other show on TV, and it was a classic. Well, it does. 30 years later, we look back, it doesn't hold up. There weren't enough diverse characters. There weren't enough people of color. Blah 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 blah. We have got to stop taking things out of historical context and trying to judge everything by whatever the changing standards are of today. Because I promise you, all of this woke crapola that's been made because it checks off all the right diversity boxes, within a couple of years, as woke keeps redefining itself, they will have a problem with the stuff that they've currently made. Somebody has got to stop the insanity. And I think what happens is every time there is a reset, there is an overcorrection, and then things get back where they need to be. And I think there has been enough backlash that Disney has finally heard it loud and clear. It began, of course, with this leaked photo. Ah, yes, Snow White and the 7 magical characters. Why? Because Peter Dinklage, the guy who played in the movie Elf, the guy who was it Game of Thrones, a little person himself who became a mega movie star, began to backlash about Disney remaking this story and what an insult it was to little people. So what did Disney do? It caved. It wanted to check off a box, and we get the 7 magical characters. And, apparently we got one small person, everybody else is kind of normal size, and I'm sure in there's at least one non-binary person, and you know what this was all about. And the backlash was swift, and it was fierce, and it even came from little people who said, "Hey, Pete, you got to make it big. Good for you. There aren't many roles for us. Why would you take away our shot at being a part of a big budget movie for a major movie studio? Why would you do that?" The backlash was fierce against Peter Dinklage. The backlash has been fierce against Rachel Zegler and her just trashing the classic of Snow White. So step in, South Park. South Park decided to take on the entire Disney franchise with this whole multiverse concept that they've come up with their Marvel movies, and they call it the Panderverse. And for copyright reasons, I'm not going to show you any clips other than to say, and again, this is not an affirmation of South Park, but what they've done in their classic, satire, parody, biting commentary style, they've turned Cartman and his friends on South Park into female persons of color because it's the Panderverse. And the villain in all of this is Kathleen Kennedy, the executive at Disney World, who is behind all of these reimagined remakes that Disney keeps turning out that are just completely not in line with the story. And South Park went after this. They also went after the fact there was a subplot in this new Panderverse that they've got out there about everybody who went and got all of these very expensive college degrees are now all being replaced by AI, and they don't know how to do anything. They don't know how to fix anything. They don't know how to build anything. They can't fix a car, can't fix a sink, can't fix anything. And the handymen in the future become the billionaires who then decide to stop fixing things for people because they've become billionaires. I mean, it was a great double whammy in the concept that they came up with. And as a result of this, there have been so many people pointing out what was wrong with the new Snow White, but when Disney went after South Park and tried to sue, Kathleen Kennedy has gone after Disney or after South Park and is trying to sue. This has become now the most watched South Park episode ever in their almost 30-year history. And again, this is not an endorsement of South Park. There's a lot of things that they deal with that I certainly am in 100% disagreement with them on. But they took on this issue, and as a result, there's an issue now with Snow White when they tried to make her snow woke. We got this little snapshot, this little teaser from Disney. Shazam, Batman. Those aren't 7 magical characters. It's really bad CGI, but those are actually 7 dwarfs. Right away, everybody was like, wait, whoa. Is Disney going to reshoot this movie? I mean, I forget how deep they're in. It's like $500 million they're in now, and then they had a big budget plan for this. Now, remember, this was supposed to have been released. Initially, it was supposed to be released, I believe it was sometime this year. Then it got pushed to March 2024, and now they have just announced it will be released in March 2025. That means they're reshooting. That means they're certainly reshooting all the scenes that had the 7 magical characters, and I'll just bet that this time Snow White is going to get kissed by the prince. And again, calling the prince the stalker, the bad guy. I'm sorry, if I remember the story right, the villain in the movie is, the evil queen. A woman who tried to kill the princess. And what did the 7 dwarfs do? These 7 guys and the prince do? They saved her from the evil queen. But all of a sudden now they're the bad guys. We got to replace the dwarfs and have these magical creatures of diversity. And so Disney, there's obviously the backlash is so fierce, and Disney cannot afford another colossal loss, especially now that Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire have announced that in March 2024 was going to go head-to-head, a David versus Goliath thing. They've done their own version of Snow White.
My queen, Snow White.
She is my undoing?
She is the reason your powers wane. Her innocence and purity is all that can destroy you. On this day, be warned. She is also your salvation queen.
I got to admit, I'm personally not a big Ben Shapiro fan, and when I heard that the Daily Wire was doing this, I'm like, oh, this. I get why they're doing it, and in principle, I agreed with them, but I'm thinking this will be so low budget and so tacky. After seeing that trailer, I have to tell you, it actually looks like they put something into this, and it looks like it will certainly be worth watching. And I think you put all of the backlash that's been online, and I mean everybody has trashed this Snow White movie. And then you throw on top of it South Park with their biting, scathing, that's a better word, scathing satire of what Disney is doing and killing all of their movie franchises with all of this woke nonsense. And then the cherry on the sundae, Ben Shapiro's movie studio gives us the adaptation that is going to line up with the book. Now, of course, Disney and their attorneys have immediately gone after this new movie, that it's encroachment on copyright, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the source material, the book, as long as Ben and his people, and I don't think they're this stupid, but as long as he and his people stuck to the book and didn't borrow any caricatures or symbolism that's not in the book, but rather from the 1937 Disney film, as long as they stayed away from the Disney movie, they're going to be fine. And that movie looks like it's worth watching. But now the Snow Woke is being reshot. This is a disaster for them, and the only way they can recover, they have to do one of two things here. They either have to scrap it completely, and of course they're furious that Daily Wire released that trailer on the 100th anniversary of Disney. They either have to scrap this movie entirely, or they've got to remake it in spectacular grandeur, which means, what are we talking about, $1 billion movie project now? And they've got to make it a classic to the original story and to the original movie. Now, I know with everything else going on in the world, you're probably thinking, Pastor Marty, why are you doing this story? Because it is yet again, we got a big win last week with the new Speaker of the House. And did you see what he's cleverly done? He's basically told the White House and the Democrats, fine, you want money for Israel? We'll do that. But we're going to cut the IRS budget by you want $14 billion to go to Israel? Then we're going to cut the IRS by $14 billion. Bump it up, bump. Remember a couple years ago when the Biden administration added over 100,000 new IRS agents that are armed with guns? Remember that? This sets up a fight in the Senate because the Senate Democrats are certainly not going to want to, quote, defund the IRS. So which do you want to do? You want to help Israel? You want to? I'm really starting to like this new speaker. He flew in under their radar. This is getting good. I brought you that story because I wanted you to because some days we can look at all this stuff and we think we're just losing on every front. I'm here to tell you, and this is going to be a strange tie-in considering I started out talking about South Park, but there is still a God on the throne who orchestrates our days. And we've swung this pendulum in this completely insane direction, and you're starting to see some of it come back because people are standing up, speaking up, and fighting back and saying enough. enough. And that's why I wanted to bring you the Snow White story. Am I going to go see the new Snow White movie? No. Will I watch the Ben Shapiro version? Well, it depends. If it's going to be on, the channel he owns that I've got to buy a subscription to, no. At some point, I'll see it some way that, it's on some platform that I haven't got to pay another, $5.99 or $10.99 a month for. We did away with cable because, cable's so expensive. How much are we all paying on multiple streaming platforms? It's crazy. But anyway, I digress. It was just meant to show you that in the pushback on this culture war, if we speak up, if we stand together and we push back, we are seeing corporate America is beginning to hear loud and clear, go woke, go broke.